This is cinema. No, really, it was, as Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns met at midfield at Georgia Tech to discuss their upcoming tag team match against Sikoa and Jacob Fatu at Bad Blood, and this was about as unique of a presentation as you're going to get for a segment like this, and it also may hint at sort of the way of the future for WWE when it comes to putting together some of these, video packages and sort of teases for what's to come for certain superstars and all that. And I think you're definitely seeing, a bit more of a shift towards that, which you can't do this all the time in terms of how they presented this here with Cody and Roman Reigns. It was unique to Atlanta, given the backstory between the two there. But I do think this is something they are definitely going to lean into a lot more in the future, depending on what the reaction is to this one here. But that was really this edition of SmackDown, right? It was all about seeing what we were going to get with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. We knew there were going to be some other stuff added in, which there was at the end with Kevin Owens. But everything else we'll talk about a little bit later, kind of a quick tidbits on. But let's start with the face-to-face between Cody and Roman Reigns. And really, there were a couple different themes brought up here. You can see that it's still kind of a battle of these two and their egos, right? We talked about that in previous videos where it's Roman still wanting to push the idea that he is the top of WWE. He's the face of WWE, but Cody is the one holding the championship now, right? And so Cody can be the one that claims that it is now his WWE, and you heard Cody bring that up in this particular exchange with Roman Reigns about how there was another tribal chief in Solo Sikoa, although, as we think, there could be another tribal chief eventually inserted into that, with The Rock being in that role. But for now, when you look at the setup here, it's these two guys struggling to overcome the idea that the other is bigger than him, right? And that's kind of the way they've played this up here, is you still have that power dynamic, a bit of a power struggle, I guess, between these two top stars. And I think that was certainly one of the things that they pushed here. But the difference is now, as Roman Reigns brought up, is that what? It's Cody Rhodes being the one that's holding the shiny championship on his shoulder. And it's not Roman Reigns doing that anymore, which means that Roman is not the one that has everything to lose for once. That is kind of the different part of the story now, to where it is Cody being the person who has everything to lose. Because as Roman said here, Roman has lost Jim Uso. He's lost Paul Heyman. He's lost the Bloodline, and he's lost the Ulafala. But Cody is now the person who, if he believes that he is actually the person that is on top, he's got the championship. He's still got his friends in Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, which we'll get to in a second. Cody is on top of the world, right? Meanwhile, Reigns is trying to figure out how he gets back there. And for him, it is starting with trying to dissect this new version of the Bloodline that Solo Sikoa has created. And so I think that is sort of an interesting dynamic that they're playing up here, is the fact that, yes, it's sort of, one of those things where you think all the way back to the WrestleMania 40 build and everything that happened between these two, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. But now that you see where each is at in his journey since then, which is been almost 6 months from now, you can tell how different of a spot each are in than they were before. And I think it's, kind of makes sense to now connect them together for this one final time in terms of actually being on the same side, because here's what I think is going to happen. Because they are still playing up what they're doing here in terms of, hey, one guy says he's the face of WWE, the other guy says he's the face of WWE, and Roman, at the end of this segment, making it very clear that whenever they're finished doing this, Roman is coming for his championship. And we've said that before. They're definitely pushing the third match between the two. When could that match happen? It's not going to happen at WrestleMania 41. We know that. I don't think it's going to happen at the Royal Rumble. We know that. Survivor Series is off limits because why? We know we're getting War Games there. But before Survivor Series, you've got WWE Crown Jewel coming up in early November. And that's a show we've not really talked a lot about because it's really going to be all about what happens after Bad Blood. But I think that could certainly be a destination to where they decide to do Cody versus Roman Part 3. I'm not saying it's going to happen this quickly, but you can tell they're already setting it in motion to where if they want to go ahead and get to the third match, now's probably the time if you're going to do it. Because again, you've got to think of, well, how long is Cody going to be champion? Is he going to hold the belt through WrestleMania 41 to where maybe you do this match sometime next year? Not sure. But when you have the potential matches on the cards for both of them, right? Both still could have matches with The Rock. That's going to happen. We just don't know in what order. Cody's going to have a match with Randy Orton. It seems like, as we'll get to in a second, Cody's going to have another match with someone else who he just faced. So if you're going to do Cody versus Roman, depending on what happens in this tag team match at Bad Blood, it would make a lot of logistical sense to be able to put these two back in the ring together for Crown Jewel. What is that? I want to say it's probably, 4 weeks before Survivor Series? And I don't know if Cody's involved in the War Games match at Survivor Series with Reigns. So I think there's a lot of stuff that they're playing off of here, and I think that's going to make it very interesting. But as I said, I think the unique presentation was really what, sort of shined in this segment. And sure, some people I know are going to think this was a little cheesy. It's not your typical old school wrestling, type, performance here, right? You're not just having two guys who were standing in the middle of the ring, no, sound effects, no music, none of that. But that was really what this is all about. WWE is really upping the presentation, making this feel like cinema, and that's what they were going for here on this. So I don't know if this is something you can do every single week, but as I said, I do think this is kind of the way of the future when you look at how they're experimenting with these kind of things to give it that larger-than-life feel. And I think that this was one of those, great opportunities to try it and see what you could get out of it. Because again, I think this is definitely something with all the muscle at their disposal when it comes to production and all of that. I just think they're going to keep leaning into this kind of stuff. And like I said, I don't think you can do it just for everything. But even there was something else on the show, right? Like they did the Chelsea Green thing with the dumpster to a much lesser extent than Cody versus Reigns. But still, I mean, they're definitely, trying to do a lot more of these, pre-recorded video segments where, they're really focusing on the presentation aspect of things. So, this was, like I said, this was an interesting development between these two with Cody and Reigns, and now we wait and see what happens at Bad Blood, but definitely pushing the idea that Reigns now has nothing to lose, Cody has everything to lose, and that means that they're probably still headed towards a collision course for a third match between the two, but it's all going to depend on what happens when they team up at Bad Blood, which now, as we said, we can kind of segue into the next thing involving Cody Rhodes because it was at the end. And we were wondering, right? We said, I'm like, hey, I don't think this stuff is done yet with Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. It can't be. And you guys know one of the things I talked about in the video we did on Friday was how are Kevin Owens and Randy Orton going to react to what Cody has done. And that was really something that we knew we were going to get on the show. We didn't get Randy Orton, but we got Kevin Owens. And, kind of starts with a backstage vignette where you've got, Byron Saxton walking up as Owens is watching the end of this video between Cody and Reigns. And, you've got Owens sort of speechless, not knowing what he's going to say because you can tell there's frustration there. You can tell it's kind of boiling a little bit for him. Then he gets in the ring, goes to make his response to what's actually going on. But then it's the Bloodline who get involved. Remember, no Solo Sikoa on the show, which I think makes sense. Not a bad idea to keep Solo off after the loss next week, because Solo has been on TV pretty much every single week, right? As this new leader, give him a step back to get ready for this big tag team match. I thought that was a nice little added touch to keep him off the show. But, you have Kevin Owens where he doesn't get a chance to address Cody, and they bring it up on commentary at the very end. Whenever Cody comes out to make the save after the Bloodline, has taken the advantage on both Owens, DIY, and the Street Profits, and you've got Cody coming out to make the save for Kevin Owens, and Michael Cole's like, Cody, makes the save for Owens again, but we know it's all about the flip of that, where it is Owens has kind of been the person who has saved Cody. He's been there to protect Cody throughout the summer. And now Cody has repaid him by doing what? Teaming with Roman Reigns. And we know the history between Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns, the frustration that Owens has publicly talked about with Roman Reigns in that segment with Nick Aldis about getting the championship opportunity and all that. And this was another tease where you had Kevin Owens holding the chair, and WWE did a great job. Again, the production is it's unmatched. But they did such a great job. You go back and watch the replay where they let it just set. Like, it just sits there. Like, for, I don't know, it felt like it was a little uncomfortable how long where Cody is standing there, Kevin Owens is behind him, and they let it just sit there long enough to where the crowd is buzzing a little bit, right? Because they think they know what's about to happen, or at least that's their thought, is, this may be where Kevin Owens hits Cody Rhodes, but they let it just sort of simmer right there in front of you, and that was such a nice little touch because it just continues to escalate each time, and now we know that they are sort of setting this up, and I think Owens is going to have to snap at some point, or they could do the thing where you think it's going to be Kevin Owens who's going to turn on Cody, but really it's the person you're not thinking about at the time, and that's Randy Orton, who is the one that ultimately turns on Cody. So I'm very intrigued by seeing where they go with this. We knew they'd get back to Owens at some point, and I like the way they kind of brought it back in here because, as I told you guys, Cody made a big mistake by teaming with Roman Reigns. When he signed that contract, Cody made one of the worst decisions he's made since he's rejoined WWE, because there's going to be consequences with Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, and we saw a little bit of that here. Owens reluctant to shake the hand of Cody, ultimately decides to do it, but you can tell each time it's getting a little bit more frustrating for Kevin Owens, and we'll see what happens kind of with the fallout of all this. But I thought it was really a good way to tie everything in, again, with the unique style that they did for the Cody and Reigns thing, and then to have Cody come out and make the save for Owens, and have Owens, never actually giving you what he thought about it because he kept getting interrupted. Commentary makes sure to mention that. So we still don't know what Kevin Owens thinks. We just know what he did here, and I think it's going to wind up being something that's not ideal for Cody Rhodes, is my guess. But, that was, again, I thought that was the best part of the show. The overall show itself, it really was themed around that, right? Like, you knew the big money segment was going to be Cody and Reigns in the face-off at Georgia Tech, and you knew kind of seeing what Cody was going to do in the main event after Owens found himself at a disadvantage against the Bloodline. Elsewhere on SmackDown, I'm just going to bring this one up first because, we talked about it last week or the week before, whatever it was. Giovanni Vinci has lost again. And so he is now 0-2 against Apollo Crews on SmackDown. And at this point, I'm laughing because what else do we do, right? That's kind of what this guy has been made out to be in his first couple appearances. And you can say, well, this is, one of those things going to eventually get him over. It may, but it's kind of a different way than we probably would have expected for Giovanni Vinci to be sitting here being 0-2 against Apollo Crews with two kind of quick roll-up wins. The first quicker than the second, but still, Vinci got a little bit of his heat back after the match. But at this point, I am fascinated by where they go with him, because I'm like, I don't know what they're doing with Vinci. But Imperium had a great run. Ludwig Kaiser's having a great run right now on Raw. Just had maybe one of his career-defining moments in that promo segment with Sammy on Raw. And Kaiser could eventually get a world title shot against Gunther. But Giovanni Vinci has lost twice now since being repackaged into this gimmick. So it is what it is. But there you go. For all you Giovanni Vinci fans out there, I apologize. But it does not seem like he is set for a huge course right now in WWE in terms of rising up the card. But elsewhere, you did have LA Knight successfully defend the championship, the United States title, against Andrade, which we knew. We didn't expect the title change by any means, but we are going to get part 6 in the series of Carmelo and Andrade, as they're going to face off next week. So this series keeps going. We always thought it was going to get to 7 matches, and so that's kind of your setup here. You kind of had a bit of the handshake after between Knight and Andrade. Could they do the triple threat match eventually? I would think that's probably an option they're going to do, but we also know you're going to get Knight versus Carmelo at some point too in the near future. So it seems pretty set in terms of your SmackDown United States title scene right now. It's really those 3 guys, and we'll see if anybody else gets added into the mix on that. But elsewhere, you did have the double pin, Bayley and Naomi pinning Tiffany Stratton after Stratton, accidentally came off the top and hit Nia Jax. So Jax was pissed after the match. So you had the double pin. They had to, it seemed like it was a tough thing to try to pull off the double pin the way they did it. Naomi had to kind of get her feet out from under the ropes, but the double pin leads to the singles match next week. So Bayley versus Naomi next week. The winner will go on to meet Nia Jax at Bad Blood. So I think that's kind of about what we thought. I know initially it was like, well, could they do the triple threat there with those 3 at Bad Blood or whenever they decide to do the match? You always felt like somebody's going to get the win here. And you do feel like, look, Bayley's not gotten her rematch, as she said, but this would be a bit of an opportunity for Naomi, as she mentioned. Remember, she came back to WWE, back at the Royal Rumble, and, she's been waiting for this opportunity now 9 months or maybe longer by the time she gets the shot later. I could see that going either way. There's arguments for both in terms of who, kind of comes out of that and gets the shot at Nia Jax. But Tiffany Stratton may have made another mistake, and so the tension building between her and Nia, which you had the backstage segment before the match where Nia basically telling Tiffany she's going to be leaving SmackDown if she's the one that allows the pin. So those kind of things playing out there between the two friends on that side of things. But that was really the story, I think, of SmackDown. Those were kind of your big things. I'm kind of going back through. I'm sure there's something I'm like, but SmackDown's a pretty compact show right now. I mentioned the Chelsea Green thing earlier where, she's setting up, they do the video with her where she's picking up the trash, she's near the dumpsters and all this stuff. I mean, it's just your Chelsea Green type stuff. I still would have liked Chelsea Green to get a bit more of a prominent role after Money in the Bank. You guys know, we were talking about her months ago, how much her character was clicking. Like she was really seemed to have a lot of momentum. That's probably stalled a little bit now, but still, I think that, there's still a lot you can do with Chelsea Green. She's going to have the dumpster match in a couple weeks with Meechin there. But yeah, that was SmackDown. And, the thing is with SmackDown right now, because it is so centered around, really it's just your primary top, stars, right? Cody, Owens, the Bloodline, Reigns, and of course, you just kind of have everybody kind of dipping in and out, whether it's Orton doesn't have to be there every week and those kind of things. But you guys know, I'm sure you saw in January, you're going to have SmackDown move to 3 hours, at least temporarily. It seems like the thought is SmackDown's going to move to 3 hours only for 6 months or so. So it's not going to stay at 3 hours forever. At least I hope not, because I think this is a show right now that, as we said, there are a lot of people that are being built up to kind of further their movement up the card, whether it is people like Stratton, Carmelo, and so forth. But you've also got such sort of a big distinction between your really top-end stars that is carried really by the Bloodline storyline. So, and I think that's just kind of where SmackDown is right now. Another thing, I just thought of this, I know I didn't mention it earlier, but I had to bring it up because I was tweeting about this. Tama Tonga, when he comes out and the way he's talking right now, like this guy is just, he's on another level. Like, I mean, if you're saying, is a guy at a 1 through 10, Tama Tonga right now when he speaks is on like a 28 because all the sound effects, the gyrations that this guy makes. I don't know if I'm supposed to laugh, but I have a good time with Tama Tonga right now. Like he's entertaining, and I know people think it's just one of the most ridiculous things in terms of how he goes about making all these sound effects. But hey, I mean, it is what it is, I guess, at this point. But I would say I'm entertained by it. Every time this guy is on the mic right now, the way they're presenting him, I'm intrigued by what he's going to do next or what sort of animal noise he may make next. So there you go. There's some thoughts on the Tama Tonga promo, if you want to call it, which was not really that much on this episode. But there you go, guys. There's some thoughts on SmackDown. Again, I thought the Cody Reigns thing was definitely worth watching. It's a must-see just because of how they presented it. It may not be for everyone, but I do think this is the way of the future in WWE in terms of how they do these video packages and everything, kind of building storylines and such. So, yeah, that was really good stuff, I think, for how they wanted to present it. And now we see what the fallout is for these two. But you guys let me know what you thought of this week's SmackDown. Where do you think things head from here with Cody and Reigns and Owens and the Bloodline and so forth? Let me know your thoughts and predictions in the comments. As always love the feedback from you guys. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out as well. And let me know your thoughts on this week's edition of WWE SmackDown.